and practice has really become endemic since the end of the Cold War. Again, we're the only superpower left. You can make an argument now that, Germany might be an economic superpower. We might be the military superpower. And other things like that we've split superpower status up. India might be another economic powerhouse, another superpower. I mean, it's just how you define it, really. Congress, again, declare war, but preclude certain actions from being taken. And I got that backwards. Congress forbade the Adams administration from deploying land forces, but said naval forces were okay. Got that backwards. Well, the theory was the Navy could intercept anything coming over from France.
Maybe you'll get to this, but what's the system for like declaring war? Does it go like to the House first, and then like do they all get together and talk and be like, okay, this is what we're doing? Like, what's the system to officially declare war?
Okay. Let's look it up.
So, are we the superpower still? Of whatever?
Are we officially the superpower? I would argue, and another political scientist would probably disagree, that we are a superpower in that nobody can match our military strength. Are we the superpower? Probably not. I think China probably has a better economy than we do. The Chinese would say they have a better military than we do. I don't think so. So about declarations of war. So I do subscribe to the theory that there are multiple superpowers, for different sorts of things. We are certainly a superpower. Some would say we are the superpower still. Others would say we're not. We've lost that status. We've fallen like Rome.
I read in one of my other classes something about like another country had called us like third world because of some, I don't remember what exactly. And this was like last administration. I mean, I wouldn't go so far to say we're a third world country, but
No.
In terms of money management.
And like some economic issues, including poverty and
then poverty was, part of it.
All right, so that doesn't say officially how.
What's encouraging though is like we have a ton of debt, but so does China. And I think their economy is going to start tipping in the next decade.
So let's see if the House of Representatives will tell us officially how. Constitutional framing, constitutional issues. So since 1789, this is off the House of Representatives website, Congress has declared war 11 times against 10 countries during 5 separate conflicts, again off of the House of Representatives website. In each of these 11 instances, the president appealed to Congress for authorization either in person before a joint session or in a written request. AUMFs are something different than what you were asking me about, Cadence. The House has acted quickly once presidents have requested formal declarations of war. Here we go, this will tell us. One day after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in early December 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt addressed a joint session of Congress, laying out his cause for war. When the House gathered immediately afterward to discuss Roosevelt's request, Jeanette Rankin of Montana repeatedly sought recognition to address the chamber. As members prepared for the final vote, many approached Rankin or hoping to convince her to vote for war. At the very least, she hoped she would vote present or abstain altogether. When the reading clerk reached her name, the roll call on the resolution's final passage, Rankin voted no. The only vote against the bill passed 388 to 1. As a woman, I can't go to war, she said, and I refuse to send anyone else. I respect that. After the chamber erupted in protest, Rankin waited in a phone booth, poor lady, before the Capitol Police escorted her back to her office.
So it's kind of like any other bill or.
Yeah, it's kind of like any other bill. Passes Congress, passes the Senate, goes to the president, then it's the law. AUMFs are a different
Is that authorized military force?
authorization for the use of military force. That's right. Yeah.
Have you seen The Office where Michael Scott declares bankruptcy? And they're like, you can't just say bankruptcy. And he's like, I didn't say it, I declared it. That's kind of what I imagine. You can't just go to war.
Yeah, you have to declare it. Yeah, they can forbid deployment of certain weapons, set rules on treatment of prisoners of war. We treat prisoners of war well in the hopes that if one of our men are captured, they're treated very well. And these powers helped or did help when Congress was using them, perpetuate the limited government that we had hoped for in the United States. We need to have an energetic executive to secure our rights, but we have to be responsible, or the president, rather, has to be responsible to Congress in his war-making powers so that he wasn't going against the consent of the governed. Obviously, Congress can't micromanage the president's running of a conflict. If 535 people are telling the president what to do, nothing would ever get done. We would invariably lose whatever war we were in. I think for fairly obvious reasons. In that case, if 535 people were saying do this, do that, do the other thing. Mr. Rosato.
Can they put forth an executive order and then it would have to go through the Supreme Court later so that they can enact war, but then, you know what I mean, kind of get the ball rolling before they can be stopped?
Just an executive order saying, I, Joseph R. Biden, declare war with Serbia.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever been tried. I don't see a problem with that in theory, but
Okay.
I could very well be wrong. But I don't see a problem with that in theory. Is someone else trying to say something? No? Okay. And all this, I mean, the view and the meaning of all of what I've said here depends on what your view of what the government is supposed to be doing is. Yeah. Later, as the founders' conception of government was rejected, and it has been pretty much rejected, you see a change in what justice actually means. Different types of policies flow from this and how the Constitution is interpreted. If rights were and are to be secured, say the freedom of speech, a certain set of policies is required. You have to pursue policies that maintain your independence. You cannot secure rights effectively at all if your interests are subordinated to another nation, which is the prevalent theme as you read in Washington's farewell address. What does Ms. Kraft, George Washington, say particularly about alliances with foreign nations? You don't know? Does anybody?
Word for word, but pretty much your priorities are skewed based on the interests of another country, and like you can pretty much alter the interests of your own country based on theirs.
Yeah. What sort of ties do Washington seem to prefer? Commercial ties, yeah. Trade is good. Alliance is ephemeral, not so great. What else isn't so great that he talks about? Parties. Yep, you got it. So we also have to have a navy to protect our insular situation. We are blessed as a country to be surrounded by the sea on the east and the west coast. This is great for us. We don't have to be involved in the affairs of Europe or South America or wherever if we don't want to be. We're very well protected. The Canadians aren't going to start anything that we're going to need to get involved in. The founders back then especially didn't want to be dominated by Britain and France. The founders wanted political insulation. They weren't isolationists, which in your Federalist Papers, a lot of you seem to think. Insulation is not isolation. Lost my train of thought. Let's try it again. Insulation is not isolation. We wanted, and the founders wanted, and we still hopefully do want good relations with all, and especially trade relations. We wanted wealth. Wealthy nations can protect itself better and preserve its independence. Are we a wealthy nation? Technically so. We have a pretty decent economy. Anybody know how far in debt we are? Trillions. Let's look up the exact number. The U.S. debt clock. Debt to the...
Who do we need to pay back?
I think the main one's
Japan, China. I believe we're still paying off World War I and II. I believe. Yeah, the current debt is 23.3 trillions as of February 2020, but it's 2 years later.
In debt to us as well.
Yeah. People are in debt to us too. Yeah. So as of 10:24 a.m. on April 5th, 2022, the national debt is 30,364,507,600,000. It keeps going way too fast. $700,100 because the interest keeps growing. Yeah. Yeah, Rob.
No, I just love, like, so many people use our defense budget as, like, an argument against, like, capitalism and all that. When you look at Medicare and Social Security, they're almost double the amount.
Yeah.
I mean, Social Security is going to run out before any of us.
Oh, nobody in this room is ever going to see Social Security check. No. But if you look at this, I mean, everybody in this room owes $91,242. That's our share of the national debt. Nobody's going to come knocking on your door, Jill, asking for $91,000.
I'm just like amazed.
Yeah.
What does this debt really do? Like, are the countries gonna come and be like, hey, you gotta pay us? Like, isn't it more,
They could. I mean, I don't. They're not going to, but they could come in and say, and Russia could, in theory, call on its debt, and then we would have no choice but to pay Russia the money we owed at that point. Yeah.
States can declare bankruptcy. Why can't federal governments? It's just who would actually allow that? Who would approve it?
I would imagine that would go through the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. If we would never declare bankruptcy just because we're the United States and we don't do that.
Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, like other countries who are in tremendous debt, like compared to their GDP.
Good question. Countries that have declared bankruptcy.
Who would they even declare it to?
Costa Rica.
At least 9 times.
Iceland, Argentina. Four countries that went bankrupt but lived to tell the tale. Greece became the first developed country to default on the International Monetary Fund when it missed its $1.7 billion debt payment.
Yeah, we're at 30.
Iceland went bankrupt in 2008. Argentina went bankrupt in 2001. Russia, yeah. Mexico, 1982.
So if we put our pride aside, could we really? You know what I mean? With that tremendous amount of debt?
Yes. Yes, and
You think it would start like a world war?
no,
Okay.
no, it wouldn't.
Countries didn't get their money that we owe them, China, you know what I mean?
I would imagine we would go into an economic downturn, the likes of which the people, it would make the people who lived through the Great Depression look like they were hanging out in 5-star hotels. Just my imagining. But if you look here now, the federal debt to GDP ratio, 125.59%. So the debt is now greater than our ability to repay the interest.
It went down, in my opinion.
And it may go down again. And I really hope it does.
Do you think it will?
No.
Not anytime soon.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, this administration has printed so much money and caused so much inflation that the dollar has become a lot more worthless than it was. I mean, you just look at the gas prices
Yeah.
or the price of a gallon of milk
Yeah.
or a dozen eggs or something like that, and just to see, the money is depreciating in value.
yeah, I mean, a lot of that also has to do with supply chain and price gouging of oil companies and stuff like that.